The window blew out, heat boiled across the porch, and the roofline groaned like something alive. Mark Ellery stepped off engine 3, boots sinking into the February slush. His breath hit the cold air in sharp bursts as the crew pulled the line toward the front door. The fire had already taken the A-side windows. Orange light pulsed inside like a heartbeat. Two-story wood frame. Possible entrapment, the lieutenant called, radio crackling. Neighbors think a dad and kid live here. Another shift of the roof. Mark didn't like that sound. He masked up, heard the seal tighten, tasted the familiar bite of rubber and stale tank air. The moment the door swung open, a wave of dark brown smoke rolled out heavy enough to push them back a step. They went in low. The carpet was already melting under their gloves as they advanced the line down the narrow hallway. Mark felt the hose vibrate in his palm, the quiet hum of water moving, ready. The lieutenant opened the nozzle in short bursts, knocking down the licking flames that crawled along the ceiling. A new noise hit, a dull thud deeper in the structure. "Structural movement," Mark said through the mask. The lieutenant nodded. They pushed another few feet. The smoke thickened until it felt like wet concrete. Every breath tasted hotter. Mark checked his pressure. Still good. He scanned left, right, trying to find the doorway shapes through the murk. Then a sound slipped through the roar. A voice, weak, muffled. A single syllable or maybe just a gasp. The lieutenant heard it too. "Victim, hold position." But as he leaned forward for a better angle, a joist overhead let out a hard crack. The ceiling dipped, sagged, and in the next instant a sheet of drywall broke loose and slammed between Mark and the crew. Mark fell back, instinct pulling him away from the collapsing debris. Smoke filled the sliver of space above him as he scrambled to stay orientated. "Engine 3 interior. We have a separation," the lieutenant shouted. "Mark, sound off." Mark coughed, tapping the floor twice with his gloved fist. "I'm good. I'm pinned behind debris. I've got space." A half-second of relief, then the fire changed its voice. A deeper rumble, the kind that meant rollover was building somewhere overhead. He checked the fallen section. It wasn't crushing him, but it blocked the hose line and cut him off visually. The crew was on the other side, shouting faintly through SCBA muffling, and then he heard it again. That same small voice, somewhere behind him now. A direction he didn't like, toward the back bedrooms where the fire was growing fast. He froze for a beat, heartbeat punching the inside of his mask. A quick memory flashed. His daughter at 7, hair still wet from swim practice, telling him to hurry but be safe. He shoved it away and steadied his breathing. He keyed his mic. "I have possible victim voice on the Charlie side hallway. I'm going to check 10 feet. The lieutenant's reply broke up. "Hold position. Collapse. Wait for..." Static swallowed the rest. Mark looked at the sagging structure over his shoulder. 10 feet wasn't much. 10 feet could still mean everything. He moved. The smoke thickened instantly, turning his world into a hot black tunnel. He swept the floor with one hand, searching for shape, fabric, skin, anything. A new crack sounded above him, sharp, too close. He stopped mid-crawl. The air shifted in a way he recognized, the moment before something big gave way. A piece of the hallway ceiling bowed downward, edges crumbling. Then it started to fall. The ceiling hit the floor behind him with a flat, punishing thud. Dust blasted forward, filling the small pocket of air he'd been crawling through. Mark tucked his chin, arms tight, letting the debris roll past his boots. The heat jumped another notch. Not yet flashover, but close enough to steal confidence. He pushed forward anyway. His glove brushed something. Not a person, just a collapsed picture frame. He felt the splintered wood, the glass still warm. A quiet second passed while he waited for the next shift of the structure. Nothing. Just the low growl of fire eating deeper into the rear rooms. Then the voice came again. Faint, strained. A single breathy word he couldn't make out. "Engine 3 interior," he tried on the radio. Victim still calling out. "Advancing in Charlie hallway. Low visibility." Only static answered. Mark tapped his helmet once, a habit from years of working with unreliable radios. No point wasting time. He kept crawling, sweeping wide arcs with his free hand, while the other steadied him along the wall. Another microsecond of quiet hit him, a flash of a hospital hallway years back, when he'd nearly lost a rookie to smoke inhalation. Same feeling in his chest now. Time thinning out. The floor changed under him. Carpet gave way to something softer. Blankets, maybe clothing. A child's bedroom. The heat here was worse, pushing at his ears, squeezing the air in his mask. His low-air alarm wasn't ringing yet, but he felt the future ticking toward it. Then his hand struck something that didn't belong. Fabric, warm, shape. He leaned forward and swept again. This time he felt the curve of a shoulder, small, unmoving. Mark shifted to his knees, cleared debris with quick motions. He found an arm, too limp, and then a small chest. No movement, but when he pressed 2 fingers gently to the neck, he felt it, a flutter, weak, inconsistent, but alive. "Got you," he muttered, barely audible through the mask. A new sound cracked from the far wall, wood splitting. Hotter air surged across the floor, pushing toward him. The fire was moving their way, fast. He wrapped an arm under the child's torso and pulled them close. The kid couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. Light but awkward in gear-thick gloves. He pivoted toward where he'd come from, only to realize the hallway behind him now glowed faintly. Not from exit light, but from active flame rolling in. Another structural groan shivered down the frame of the house. He had seconds, maybe. Engine 3, interior. He tried again. "I have a pediatric victim. I need an exit path. Repeat, I need..." A burst of static crushed the rest of his message. He could hear faint voices, but nothing clear, like he was shouting from underwater. He crawled forward anyway, pulling the child tight to his chest. The floor sagged under one knee, a dangerous sign. The fire had taken something beneath. He adjusted course left, staying near the cooler air along the wall. A tiny cough. It came from the victim. Weak, but undeniably real. Mark's jaw clenched. "Stay with me, kid. We're getting out." Another micro shift, a loud pop above them. He didn't look up. He just moved faster. The hallway ahead was a blackout of thick, angry smoke. His gloved hand found the edge of a doorway, and he swung himself through it, dragging the kid behind his arm. The room was cooler, barely, but at least the smoke moved differently, venting somewhere he couldn't see. His low-air alarm chirped once. Not yet a crisis, but not good. He moved to the right wall, sliding along until his hand hit a window frame. Glass still intact. Too hot to break without risking bringing more air to the fire behind him. He scanned quickly. Dresser, bed frame collapsed, small desk overturned. Nothing useful. Another cough from the child. That faint, desperate sound cut sharper than any alarm. Mark lowered his voice. "Hang on, I'm finding a way." He checked his air again, numbers dropping faster now that adrenaline had kicked in. He had maybe a few minutes, maybe less with exertion. Then, through the noise of flame and cracking wood, came a new sound. A faint knocking, rhythmic. Someone hitting something from the other side of a wall. Crew? Or a victim? He positioned himself between the child and the heat, leaning toward the noise. The knocking came again. Louder this time. More deliberate. Someone was closer than he thought, and the wall in front of him shifted, dust sifting down in tiny gray cascades. The wall flexed again, a subtle inward push like someone testing it with a shoulder. Mark tightened his grip on the child and shifted his weight, ready for anything. The room trembled with deep rolling heat, but that pressure on the wall wasn't fire, it was human. "Engine 3 interior," he tried again. "I have contact on the Bravo wall. Someone's trying to breach through." The radio squealed, then went dead. His low-air alarm chirped again. Louder this time, a reminder he didn't need. He scanned the room quickly, spotted a small nightstand toppled beside the bed frame. He grabbed it with one hand, steadied the child with the other, and dragged the piece of furniture toward the wall. He didn't need finesse, just force. One clean swing, the wood cracked, a soft plume of dust drifted down. Another swing. The frame gave a little more. A thin fracture line appeared, glowing faintly from the heat bleeding through. On the third hit, a reply came from the other side, A thud matching his strike. Hard, focused, a firefighter. Had to be. "Mark, hold tight, we're almost through." The voice was muffled but unmistakable. The lieutenant. Relief flared for a heartbeat, quick and sharp, but he didn't let it soften him. The fire behind them growled deeper, drawing more oxygen from the collapsing structure. The room felt smaller by the second, the air hotter, thinner. He placed the child on the floor, brushing a hand over their shoulder, a tiny reassurance he barely had time to give. "Stay with me, kid. You're doing good." A cough answered him, faint but alive. He swung the nightstand again, targeting the weak point in the wall. The wood splintered and sagged. A gloved hand punched through next, clearing insulation and drywall in frantic handfuls. "Get that kid ready," the lieutenant shouted. "I'm ready," Mark answered, grasping the child under the arms. "Tell me when." A new sound rolled overhead. Long, low, and unmistakable. The attic was failing. Mark looked up just long enough to see the ceiling bow inward. Dust and embers raining down in slow, gravity-thick trails. He felt more than heard the shift. A building changing shape, preparing to come down. The lieutenant must have sensed it too. "Mark, move them through, now!" Mark pushed the child toward the opening. Two sets of arms reached in, grabbing small wrists, pulling gently but urgently. The kid disappeared through the gap as debris thumped down behind Mark, each piece a countdown. "Your turn," someone shouted. He crouched low, ready to shove himself through, when the floor under his left knee cracked. Not a soft crack, a sharp, splitting snap. Heat surged upward through the break. Not good, not survivable if it widened. He backed up a few inches, steadying himself. "Floor's unstable, I need another angle." The hole expanded another inch, glowing from the fire chewing through the basement ceiling. The room groaned above him in response, a terrible duet. "Mark!" the lieutenant shouted again. "Move!" He repositioned, dropping to his stomach to stay on the broader joists. He reached for the breach opening, but a section of ceiling collapsed in front of him, cutting off the straight path. Smoke poured down, denser and hotter. His low air alarm screamed now, a constant high-pitched chirp. Too much heat. Not enough time. He pulled himself sideways, angling toward the breach diagonally. Debris scraped across his turnout coat. His tank struck a stud. He gritted his teeth and forced himself forward. A hand appeared through the opening. "Give me your arm." He extended his right hand, then hesitated for half a heartbeat. Not fear, just a quiet, stubborn thought. Not like this. Not losing footing now, not letting the kid be the last one out. He lunged forward, grabbed the rescuer's wrist, and felt multiple hands clamp onto his gear. They hauled just as the floor behind him gave way with a ripping crash. Heat blasted his boots as the void opened where he'd been seconds before. He cleared the wall, rolling onto the hallway floor as the crew dragged him fully out. Cool air, relatively speaking, hit his faceplate. Someone slapped the emergency bypass on his regulator, feeding him a surge of life-saving air. Mark's chest burned, but his voice came out steady. "Victims alive. Get him to EMS." The lieutenant nodded, eyes scanning Mark's gear for damage. "You're cooked, man. We're pulling out." Before Mark could answer, another sound cut through the hallway. Not fire, not collapse. A voice. Small, unfamiliar. Another child. He and the lieutenant froze at the same time. The voice came again, from deeper inside the structure, a direction nobody wanted to hear. Someone else was still in there. The voice drifted through the hallway like a thread barely holding on to anything. A whimper. Maybe a name. Maybe just fear. Mark forced himself upright. His legs felt heavy, turnout gear stiff with heat, air cylinder nearly spent. The bypass boost was temporary, a minute or two at best. The lieutenant grabbed his arm. "Mark, you're out of air. We pull now or we lose you." Another whimper floated out from the darkness. Mark didn't argue. He just looked down the smoke-filled corridor. The fire was chewing its way toward them, rolling along the ceiling, hunting air. The building felt wrong. The kind of wrong you feel in your spine before your brain can interpret it. "We don't have time for a search pattern," the lieutenant said, eyes narrowing. If we go fast. Mark nodded once. Fast. They pushed forward together, moving low, helmets almost brushing the floor as the temperature spiked above them. The lieutenant opened the nozzle in sharp pulses, buying slivers of survivable space. Steam washed over them, clinging to their gloves. Then the sound came again. Closer now. A child's voice, but faint, like someone talking through layers of blankets. Mark moved toward it instinctively. A flash memory hit him, teaching his daughter to tie her shoes, her tiny voice asking him not to leave for shift. It wasn't nostalgia, just gravity, a reminder of why he'd crawled through 100 houses like this one. He shoved it aside and kept moving. They reached a narrow doorway half blocked by fallen studs. The lieutenant kicked them aside. Mark swept the room with his gloved hand, searching. The beam from the lieutenant's helmet light bounced off something in the far corner. A closet door, closed, vibrating softly. Got movement, Mark said. The lieutenant pulled the door open, but debris wedged behind it kept it from swinging wide. Only a 6-inch gap formed, enough for air to slip through, and enough sound to spill out. A tiny cry. Mark dropped flat, angled his body, and looked through the gap. A pair of eyes stared back at him, wide, terrified, reflecting the fire's glow. Another kid, maybe 8, curled behind a pile of blankets and a fallen shelf. The boy coughed, voice cracking. "Help!" "We've got you," Mark said, voice steady even as his low-air alarm screamed without rhythm now. The lieutenant braced the door while Mark drove his shoulder into the frame. Wood splintered. The gap widened by an inch. Not enough. The building groaned again. Not just a noise, a warning. The kind firefighters don't ignore. "We've got 30 seconds, tops," the lieutenant said. Mark backed up, scanned fast, grabbed a broken section of frame, and used it like a pry bar. He jammed it into the hinge area and leaned his full weight. The metal shrieked. Another inch. Then another. The boy reached out with a shaking hand. Mark grabbed it, pulled him forward, guiding him through the narrow opening. The child's sweatshirt snagged on a bent nail. Mark yanked hard, tearing the fabric free. Got him. They turned toward the hallway as the ceiling above them buckled. A sheet of flame rolled across it. Fast. Hungry. The lieutenant dropped to one knee and opened the nozzle full right, creating a temporary curtain of steam. "Go!" Mark held the boy tight and sprinted low beneath the spray. The air tasted sharp, metallic. His mask vibrated with every strained breath. His bypass hissed weakly, last drops of usable air. Halfway down the hallway, the beam sagged behind them with a crack like a gunshot. A shockwave of heat chased them out. They burst into the semi-clear foyer where 2 firefighters grabbed the boy. Someone pulled the regulator from Mark's mask and replaced his air source with a spare supply line. Cold oxygen rushed in. His vision steadied. "EMS is ready," a firefighter yelled. Mark pushed to his feet. "Get them both out, now." They hauled the 2 kids toward the waiting medics as Engine 3's crew completed final knocks, and command called the evacuation order. The house was seconds from full collapse. Mark stepped outside into the February night. Cold air slapped his face as he pulled off his mask. Steam rose from his gear in slow, ghostly waves. He watched as EMS worked. Fast hands, calm movements, oxygen masks fitted to tiny faces. The first child, the one he'd carried through the burning bedroom, coughed again. Weak, but alive. The second one squeezed a medic's hand. A long breath left Mark's chest. Not relief exactly. Something quieter, something steadier. The lieutenant walked up beside him, helmet tucked under his arm. "You burned half your air doing what most guys wouldn't have tried." Mark shrugged. "They were calling for help. You hear that, you move." The lieutenant nodded. No lecture, no praise, just understanding. The kind only people who've crawled through fire earn. Behind them, the roof of the house gave its final groan and folded inward. Sparks lifted into the night like tiny, fading stars. Time moved normally again. Mark watched the medics load the children into the ambulance. Both alive, both with a chance. He didn't need anything more than that. He exhaled once, slow and steady, the way he'd done 1,000 times after scenes like this. grounding himself, letting the night settle. Then he grabbed a bottle of water from the truck, wiped soot from his face, and stepped back toward the engine. The call was over. The voices had been found, and everyone who could be saved was